Hello and welcome back to the Google Workspace Update podcast from Strawberry 7. My name is Adam.
And my name is Adam.
We're here every week to bring you all of the latest updates happening in the world of Google Workspace. This podcast is available from your regular podcast provider, wherever you cast your pods, and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Strawberry7.
Coming up on the show today.
We have 11 updates for you today. It's quite a busy show today. We've got updates to Google Sheets, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides together in one update, Google Meet, Gmail, Google Chat, AppScript, that's a new one, Google Calendar, Google Chat, Google Meet, Google Workspace, and finally Google Keep. Not very often that we see an update to Google Keep as well. As always, there is a link in the podcast description or the video description to the document that we read from. This document contains some more information, some relevant links, some nice graphics, and even some moving graphics showing you all of these features in action. So let's get to it.
On with the show. Right, so first up this week on episode 50 of our lovely podcast, we've got a couple of little update notes for everybody.
I don't have one of those party things, so I have to just make the noise. It's a bit pathetic. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Adam.
There's nothing exciting for episode 50. It's only 50. Right. So the very first update we have is to do with Google Sheets. So. To get started with Smart Canvas in Google Sheets, so when opening a new spreadsheet or tab in Google Sheets, you'll now see the Type At to Insert notification, you could say, to help you get started with the Smart Canvas features that are available in Google Sheets. So this one, it's more of just a pointer to let you know that you can type at to get started using Smart Canvas.
Yeah, absolutely. This is even smaller than an update. Look, what would be smaller than an update? Look, Adam, an update. Little, I don't know that. I'm not as good at making up names as you are. This is more almost a notification really, and the graphic here is showing this very nicely. So what the graphic is showing is it's showing a new spreadsheet open, and in the first cell it says, sort of greyed out, it says Type At to Insert. So it's kind of a little prompt there that you can use those Smart Canvas features. We've talked before, haven't we, about Google are very proud of the Smart Canvas system, and so they should be. I haven't seen this on offer in anything else, and it's a very, very cool feature that you can use with all sorts of different functions. So I'm not surprised that Google are sort of putting a little prompt there to remind people that they can use that even within Sheets. So that's very nice to see. I think you've put a link in here, haven't you, talking about those Smart Canvas features to some of the ones that people can explore. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, that's right. So if anyone is not sure about Smart Canvas, at this point, I'm sure many of our listeners will be, but if anyone's not sure, then there is a link in there as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have another little updatelet. So this time to do with Google Docs, Sheets and Slides all as one. So there is a new look and feel for Google Docs, Sheets and Slides apps on Android devices. So Google is introducing a modernized visual design for the Google Sheets, Sheets and Slides apps on Android devices. In the coming weeks, Android users will notice a refreshed look for things like the editing toolbar, icons, background colors, and more.
And the little graphic that they've put in here looks really nice as well. It's sort of cleaned it up a little bit and made it look a little bit more like the web version, really, haven't they?
Yes, so now that they've changed it and they have given us a visual graphic so we can see what it looks like, I've completely forgotten how it looks at all. So I have absolutely no idea what it looks like before. But yeah, so I have our Google Doc open within a web browser in front of us, the documents that everyone can access to and find a link to in the podcast description. And from that, we can see on the graphic, it looks very, very similar to the new look and feel of I'd just say Google Workspace. It's very similar to Google Drive, Docs, Sheets and Slides that is mentioned as well. So it's just kind of keeping it in line with the new theme that Google Workspace has recently updated to.
Yeah, we're not really Android users, and so we don't necessarily know what this looked like before. And like you said before, Adam, it would have been nice if Google had shown a before and after graphic on here. We've only kind of got an after graphic, but it does look very nice, and I really like the sort of comment feature that they're showing on the side there, which is which looks really, really slick.
Yes, I imagine this graphic has been taken from one of those infamous large-screen Android devices.
We've heard so much about those large-screen Android devices on the podcast recently. Lovely. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
So up next, we have a Google Meet update. We have a couple of Google Meet updates this week, and here's the first one. So you can now view speaker notes while co-presenting Google Slides within Google Meet. So it's a little bit of a Google Meet inception. So earlier this year, Google added a new feature that allows multiple people to present a Google Slides presentation together within Google Meet. Co-presenters are now able to view speaker notes. Primary and co-presenters can now read from the same speaker notes while engaging with their audience during a presentation. This allows everyone to present with greater confidence and reduces context switching between Meet and Slides. This feature requires a computer with a Google Chrome or Edge browser. To be honest, I'm surprised they were even allowed to type the word Edge. I just see it now at Google HQ that there was probably some screen recording software going on somewhere. As soon as someone typed the word Edge, then a picture of a Dalek would pop up saying, "Explain, why have you typed that word?"
Exactly. Yeah, explain. I completely agree. Although we do have to bear in mind that Edge is actually based on Chromium now, so it's basically the same as Google Chrome, which I find hilarious. It's like Microsoft, just don't worry about it. Google have it sorted. They've got Google Chrome. So yeah, this is very, very nice. And there is a nice moving graphic here showing this in action on the document, which shows it very nicely. But there's basically a presentation there, and you click a button to engage your speaker notes. The presentation kind of shrinks down to about 60% of the screen size on the left, and then the speaker notes are there on the right. Actually, probably about 70%, actually, sorry, on the left.
Sorry, just to interject, I imagine that varies depending on the size of the screen you're using, on the device you're using.
Yeah, I imagine that. I don't know if they keep the ratio the same, though, or whether it will be smart enough to work out how big it has to be for the speaker notes to be visible, but that is a good point, Adam. It might, if you've got quite a particularly small screen, then the presentation itself might be quite a bit smaller. But allowing co-presenters to do this as well as main presenters makes perfect sense. It's a really, really good feature that very, very nice. Again, just one of these nice quality of life improvements like you and I like, where they've kind of incremented it. It just made it a little bit better, and that's going to be very, very nice for people to use on their presentations, I think.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. There's nothing really to complain about this update at all. It's a lovely little update. A very quick example where I could think of where this could be super handy is, say, you're co-presenting with somebody, you're the host, and someone else is controlling the slideshow on your behalf, and then you may have added a little note to say, oh, at the end of this slide, I'm just going to do a quick Q&A with the audience, or I just want to talk for 5 minutes about this, so then the person that's helping you with the slideshow doesn't move on too quickly, or something like that. So you can almost give each other a little bit of guidance as to how you're going to run through the presentation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example that you cited there, Adam. I hadn't thought of that, of actually giving notes to each other as co-presenters. That's a really, really good idea, because sometimes you are right, when you're controlling the slides like that, you don't always know to pause in a certain place or do something like that. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good example. There's a little bit about getting started here, and this is hopefully some useful things about how you actually do this, right, when you're in the meeting.
Yes, so to get started, so for the admins, there's no admin control for this feature. However, for the end users, so for the main presenter, to start a presentation, select Present a tab within your Google Meeting, and then Start Slideshow. To add a co-presenter, select Add Co-Presenter in the People panel drop-down menus. To view speaker notes, click the Speaker Notes button in the controls at the bottom corner of the presentation. To get started as the co-presenter, you'll be notified that the primary presenter assigned you as a co-presenter. You will then get control over the slides presentation, allowing you to navigate the deck for everybody within the meeting. To view the speaker notes, click the Speaker Notes button in the controls at the bottom corner of the presentation. Co-presenters must have edit access to the slides presentation in order to view speaker notes. So that's a very key point that you don't want to forget that. Ideally, in advance of your meeting, make sure that your co-presenter does have edit access to your slides presentation. And of course, everyone can visit Google's Help Center if they would like to learn more about co-presenting slides within Google Meet. And of course, I've added a link to that within our document.
That's great, thank you, Adam. And that's a really important point that you've made there about having to give them access. I wonder if we'll see in a future update, if it doesn't already, I bet there's going to be a future update where it will do
Prompts
a
for
bit
access.
of a prompt. Yeah, so when you go to make a co-presenter, it will check and it will go. I mean, we've seen Google do this a lot with these different systems. You make somebody a co-presenter and it will check the document and it will go, hey, they don't have access, they don't have edit access, do you want to give them
Because
edit
it would
access?
if you were sharing the slide within the people within your meeting, but this is not talking about sharing the slide within the people, it's talking about presenting the meeting, the slides.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it makes sense that you have to have edit access to view the speaker notes. That sort of makes sense. So I bet we'll see a little tweak to that in the future to sort of prompt a notification through or something like that to make it a bit easier for people. What's the rollout pace here?
Okay, so rapid release, there is a gradual rollout, which started on August the 23rd. Scheduled release, there is also a gradual rollout, which is starting on September the 5th.
Okay, so not too long for people to wait to see this come through, but on those gradual rollouts, it's up to about 15 days, isn't there? So yeah, it might be a little while. And what's the availability here, please, Adam?
So this update is going to be available to Google Workspace Business Standard, Business Plus, Enterprise Starter, Enterprise Essentials, Enterprise Standard, Enterprise Plus, Education Plus, the Teaching and Learning Upgrade, and Workspace Individual customers.
Okay, so it's on those slightly higher tiers, starting at business standard and going up. Again, that makes sense. It's kind of where we see the Google Meet record features and things like that start to enter. So that makes sense. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have a Gmail update. We don't see too many Gmail updates, but here's one for everybody right now. So, stronger protection for additional sensitive actions taken within Gmail. So, last year, Google introduced stronger safeguards around sensitive actions taken in your Google Workspace account. They're extending these protections to sensitive actions taken in Gmail, specifically actions relating to filters, forwarding, and IMAP access. When these actions are taken, Google will evaluate the session attempting the action, and if it's deemed risky, it will challenge with a verify it's you prompt. Through a second and trusted factor, such as two-step verification code, users can confirm the validity of the action. If a verification challenge is failed or not completed, users are sent a critical security alert notification on their trusted device. Note that this feature only supports users that use Google as their identity provider and actions taken within Google products. SAML users are not supported at this time.
Okay, that's a very interesting sort of step forward with Google's security there. I understand exactly why they've done that, because the thing is that you could go in and set up a forward, and I know with Google they've got quite a lot of security around forwarding anyway, but it does make sense that you should be challenged when you're setting up these things, because you could go into somebody's email account, set up a forward, and they might not know that it's on there. It's like one of those things. How often do you check your own forwards? How often do you check your own voicemail greeting? You know, that used to be a thing back in the day with people. They'd leave their phone on the table or whatever, and some mate would prank them by changing their voicemail greeting, you know, and you just never listen to your own voicemail greeting. So I think this makes a lot of sense with the security here, and it's a good step forward in terms of Gmail's security. The other thing as well, and this isn't just a Gmail thing, this is kind of a regular thing that I've seen most places, and I'm confused about the reason that they do it this way around. In Gmail, say you go to set up a forwarding email address, it will send a verification code to the email address that you want to forward to, okay? Now, that sort of makes sense in terms of making sure it's a real email address and things like that. But it doesn't really do much to alert you that a forward has been set up, which is what I guess this is doing in terms of at least it's presenting a challenge, and then if the challenge isn't met, it then alerts you. I think it should kind of alert you regardless, to be quite honest. It should send you a push notification or something. But the way that I've seen this happen outside of Gmail, and it's always confused me as to why it's this way round, is let's say you update your email address on an online shop. It will send a notification email to the new email address saying, hey, you've updated your email address. But it doesn't send it to the old one. And I've always found that odd. I've always found that a weird way round to do it. Why doesn't it just send it to both? Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do see what you mean. I have seen some platforms. I have seen it on both sides where it does it on both ends. So where it does kind of cover bases. But you are right in saying not everybody does do that. So this update, it is really good to see, because I don't know, I'm just going to make a bit of an assumption, which is always a bit risky, but I'm going to assume that the average user probably doesn't really check the rules that they have on their emails that often. I never used to before I was working in IT. I wasn't really aware of all these different things that you could do within your emails. And so if just an average person with an office job, something like along those lines, maybe they would not be checking for any rules. So with the example that you just said, with something like a forwarder, then it makes perfect sense to have this layer of security in, because if they went and made a cup of tea, they forgot to lock their computer screen for 5 minutes or something, someone could easily go and forward all of your emails over to this person or something, and then close that window, and then this person would be none the wiser ever, because as you were saying, that they wouldn't really get a prompt to say, oh, by the way, we have now set this forwarding up, or something like that. Yes, so I definitely do like this update. I think it's a very good idea to have.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really nice security feature. What's the getting started on this, Adam?
Admins can visit Google's Help Center if they would like to learn more about protecting Google Workspace accounts with security challenges, verifying a user's identity, and temporarily turning off the login challenges. The end users, there is no end user setting for this feature, but you'll see a verify it's you challenge if an account action is deemed risky by Google. And Google recommends that you enable two-step verification if you haven't already. And I would say I also recommend that you enable two-step verification if you have not already. We have spoken a bit before. I understand that could potentially be a bit challenging for some people within an education environment. However, if you have the option to set up two-step verification, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast will know the importance of setting up two-step verification, but any place that you can have two-step verification, set it up, put it on, because it's just golden to protecting your accounts. What's the rollout pace here and availability, please, Adam?
So, rapid release, there is a gradual rollout, which started on August the 23rd. Scheduled release, full rollout, is starting on September the 6th. And this update is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers, as well as users with a personal Google account.
Okay, so not long to wait and going to be available to everybody. That's really nice to see. Yeah, very, very nice advancement there by Google. What have we got next, please, Adam?
Up next, we have a Google Chat update. So you can now see message view counts in Google Chat Spaces. So in June, Google introduced read receipts in group direct messages so that users could quickly identify if other members of a group had read their latest message within a Google chat stream. Google is very excited to announce a similar feature in Spaces that will allow Space members to see view counts for messages in all spaces. A more detailed view of how many members are engaging with content in Spaces can be seen by hovering over the message, selecting the three-dot menu, and clicking See Message Views. The view counts in Spaces will be available for messages sent on August the 1st, 2023 and beyond. Additionally, view counts are not available for inline replies.
Okay, well, it's a nice little advancement. I mean, again, it's like a lot of these advancements that we see in chat around this sort of features. It's great for big organisations. I think you've got a really big organisation, a lot of users, and you're communicating with a lot of people in a big team or within that organisation. I think it makes a lot of sense to have these types of tools to check for engagement and things like that. But just like the read receipts, I think this is really nice. There's, for all our listeners, there's a nice moving graphic in the document which shows this in action. It shows you how to access the feature as well, which I think Adam is going to sort of go into. Well, you sort of covered it a bit there, haven't you, Adam, really, by selecting the three dots. But it shows you where to select that and what that sort of looks like in the view and how you'll see that as an end user.
Yeah, so when I first saw this update, I thought it was just going to give you a list of everybody that has already read the message, but as I just mentioned, and I must have forgotten actually, that update came out fairly recently, and that feature was available already. It will literally just give you a number. So in the example on our document, I think it says 238 people have read your message. So especially if you are a larger organisation, or I don't know, say that there's 50 staff on your team or something like that, and you've just sent out a message to everybody, instead of saying or counting or how many individuals have actually read it, you could just say, 48 people have read your message, and you know that there's 50 people within that particular space. So then you know you've hit quite a high engagement with that. So yeah, so I can see how this could be beneficial, as you say, particularly for those larger organisations.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even with us as a small team, sometimes I'll send, it's typically me, I know you do it as well, Adam. Sometimes you'll just kind of put a message out into the general chat, and it doesn't need a reply, but I do kind of think, have you guys seen it? Or have you not? You know, because there's not necessarily that reply engagement, but it's quite handy to sort of glance and see if it's been read, or see how many views it's got. So I suppose even in a smaller organisation, it would be, you know, potentially quite useful to see that engagement.
On that, actually, I'm sure a platform does. Can't remember which one. So I know within Google Chat, if you have a direct message with somebody else, and the other person has read your message, instead of saying, read at 23:49 or whatever, in the same style that WhatsApp does, it will just show that person's their avatar icon as an indication that they have seen it. However, within group messages or spaces, I know I think it would only really work if there aren't too many people within there. Say if there's 5 of us within the team, you could just see the 5 little icons, so you can see, these 3 people have read it, these 2 person's icon is missing, so I know that they haven't. Obviously that wouldn't work if you had 100 people within the space, but as a very quick visual, you would be able to see, only 1 person or only 2 people have read this message so far, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Trying to strike a balance between how many people you've got in that space and how many people you've got in the team, and one thing works for one group of people and then necessarily doesn't quite work for another.
And not copywriting all the other platforms that are already available as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Lovely, thank you, Adam. What's the getting started here, please?
Okay, so for admins, there's no admin control for this feature, but you can always visit Google's Help Center if you'd like to learn more about optimizing chat spaces for your organization, and there's a link within our document for that. For the end users, there is also no end user setting for this feature, and you, again, can also visit Google's Help Center to learn more about spaces and group conversations, and again, there is a link within our document.
That's lovely. And what's the rollout pace here, please, Adam?
Okay, rollout for the web, rapid release and scheduled release. There is a gradual rollout, so that means that there's potentially up to 15 days for feature visibility, which started on August the 23rd. But on mobile, so Android and iOS, rapid release and scheduled release, there is also a gradual rollout, which is starting on August the 28th.
Okay, great. So again, not too long to wait. And I think it's available to everybody. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, that's right. So this update will be available to all Google Workspace customers and users with a personal Google account.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Very nice. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have an AppScript update. I'm not sure if we've ever had an AppScript update before, but we've got one right now. So you can now view and compare script versions with AppScript project history. So, as Google continues to improve the experience for AppScript's developers, they're announcing Project History, which is a new interface for developers to view previously deployed script versions and compare versions to the current script version. Developers can use Project History to view the code of previously deployed script versions. The highlight changes can be used to quickly compare differences between their selected version and the current or head version, taking the guesswork out of determining what's changed. Anyone who has edit permission on an AppScript project can access project history. To navigate to the project history page, open an AppScript project and click Project History. AppScript is a low-code development platform that makes it quick and easy to build business solutions that integrate, automate, and extend Google Workspace. With AppScript, Google Workspace users can customize workflows, create automations, and build integrations that connect the applications they use every day.
Yeah, I mean, we don't use AppScript ourselves, and like you said, Adam, I don't recall even seeing a update about it, so I've not really seen it. But I bet this is going to be absolutely fantastic for fantastic for anybody. that was lame. For anybody who uses AppScript, I really think this is going to be very, very useful. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a very familiar experience in other scripting platforms, that you can kind of compare the differences and the changes to the script. The fact it highlights it. For the listeners, there's a couple of nice graphics here showing those features in action and showing how this works. There's a little bit under the graphics as well. It says here the project history page displays up to 200 previously deployed versions and the head version of the script. So that's obviously just a limitation there, I guess, 200 previously deployed versions, but my goodness, if you want to go back more than 200, that's a bit mad. Or maybe it's not.
Have you seen the timestamps on that image though?
No. Do they are they sort of really close to? Oh, they are close together. Yeah. So maybe you would use up 200 pretty quickly, actually. I think this is very, very nice and really, really nice update for anybody who's going to be using AppScript. I imagine this is going to make life really, really so much easier to see those changes and see those developments. I mean, outside of AppScript, I find the previous version and the version history on Google Docs and Sheets so useful to be able to roll back and see the changes that were made and see what's going on. So yeah, I think this would be really great for anybody using that.
Absolutely. So as you were saying, we're not too familiar with using AppScript ourselves, but yeah, my first thought was, this is just like version history that we see on Google Docs, or I think lots of Google Workspace has it, which is very, very handy, especially because it does highlight the changes. So say, did this happen? When did that happen? Or who made this change as well? That could also be quite beneficial, especially if you're working on an AppScript project with, if you're collaborating with some other people as well. So yeah, although we can't input too much on AppScript itself, I know how helpful having a version history can be, and I'm willing to bet that anybody that is using AppScript will find this very, very helpful.
Yeah, and the fact it's really highlighting those changes as well, I think is very, very useful. And in the graphic here, that is an option to be able to toggle on and off, to be able to say highlight the changes. So that's, again, very, very useful sort of advancement that they've made there. What's the getting started with this? I don't think there's probably too much to tell people, but there's a little bit under the getting started here, isn't there?
Okay, so for developers, use the developer documentation to learn more about working with AppScript, and you can also watch a video to see project history in action. I've added links to both of those within our document. Anyone who has edit permission to an AppScript project can access project history. To navigate to the project history page, open an AppScript project and click project history.
Pretty straightforward then, and nice that there's a little video there showing people how to use that. What's the rollout and availability here, please, Adam?
Okay, so rapid release and scheduled release. There is a gradual rollout for this update, which started on August the 23rd, and this update is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers, as well as users with a personal Google account. It says it's available to everyone, and as I say, so we're not actually too familiar with it. Does everyone have access to AppScript? I actually have no idea if that is just a part of Workspace that everyone does already have access to or not.
Yeah, I think they do. Even the personal customers. I think if you've got a personal Gmail account, you can, Google account, you can go up to the icons and get access to AppScript. I'm pretty sure I've seen it before. Again, haven't used it, but I remember seeing it there for a long time.
Okay, so yeah, available to everyone then.
Yeah, lovely. What's the next update, please, Adam?
Okay, up next, we have a Google Calendar update. So, displaying Microsoft Outlook users as organisers in Google Calendar. Previously, if a Microsoft Outlook user invited a Google Calendar user to a meeting event, the Outlook user's display name would not appear at all in the list of meeting attendees on Google Calendar. Google is updating this experience so that the Outlook user who organised the meeting is listed amongst the other meeting attendees in Calendar as the meeting organiser.
Well, that is a very useful update to have. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and sort of guess that this was Microsoft who was messing this up somewhere along the line. I'm just going to go on a guess about that. But again, this is really, really nice to see. It makes perfect sense that you want to know who the meeting organiser is. I think I've experienced this before as well, where people have sent me invites through Outlook and their name just hasn't appeared, and so I don't know who sent it to me or who's organised it, and it's been a bit confusing. So it makes perfect sense that they've made this advancement, and great that Google's found a way of sort of fixing that effectively and putting that in.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the devil is in the detail or not, because here it says that it only works if the person using Outlook is the person that organised the meeting, not if they were invited to a meeting, but if they organised the meeting. So to me that says if you're the host and you organised the meeting and sent it out but through Outlook, then your name will appear as the list of attendees. However, if somebody else organised the meeting but you were just invited to join the meeting and they sent it to your Outlook, then maybe your name will not appear. I'm only thinking that because they mentioned organised a couple of times.
Yes, I see exactly what you're saying, and that could be possible. It said it does specifically say though that if they were, because it says previously if a Microsoft Outlook user invited a Google Calendar user to a meeting event, the Outlook user's display name would not appear at all in the list of meeting attendees. That makes me wonder if the only person who wouldn't appear was the organiser, whereas if they'd invited other people, they would appear. However, it's not 100% clear on that. So I think it's a good point that you make there, Adam, where if somebody else, so you're basically saying if you've got two people on Outlook and person A organises the meeting on Outlook and invites person B, who's also on Outlook, and then sends it to person C who's on Google Calendar, will person C see person B as well as A? Because they'll definitely see A because they're the organiser, but will they see that other person on Outlook who's been invited along the way? Is that sort of what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I thought that was what you meant. It's not clear, you're right, it's not exactly clear here whether it's only the organiser that they're talking about, but you are right, they do mention it a couple of times. I think the thing is, we don't necessarily know exactly what the experience was like before. Most of the time, I'm the one organising meetings, so I don't have meetings sent to me. And when I do, typically these days, they're either through Zoom or they're through, I don't know, they're just not very often through Outlook Calendar. They tend to be through something else, the Calendly or one of those kind of intermediary links. So I haven't encountered this problem that recently, but it is familiar to me in the past where meeting invites have come through and it's just sort of had no name attached to it. It's funny because I always thought it was something odd that person had done, the way that they'd set it up or the way they'd set the meeting up or they'd done it through another program or something. The other thing as well here is, of course, it's very dependent on the Outlook user having set their Outlook up correctly. So they've got their name in correctly and everything like that, especially if they're using like a kind of a bit of a generic account like Finance app or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. So, it'll be interesting to see. And our listeners out there, let us know what your experience like this is, and particularly after the rollout dates for this, see how does it respond and work well for you, because maybe I am slightly overthinking this a little bit, and now it's just it lists everybody that's within the meeting, regardless of whether they accepted or was sent the invite through Outlook or not. Or maybe I am overthinking it slightly. No, maybe I'm not overthinking it, and this update is actually only specific for if you're organising the meeting yourself through Outlook.
Yeah. Were you overthinking the overthinking there, Adam?
Usually.
Yeah. You're going into overthinking inception. I mean, it's either way. Very, very nice advancement by Google. That's going to be very, very useful for people in that situation. Adam's absolutely right. If any of you listeners have encountered this, or you encounter it on a regular basis, then please let us know how this is going to change. And Adam's going to tell us, getting started here. Again, it's just like a lot of these updates, weirdly. This week, there's just sort of links, I think. But critically, Adam's going to tell you when you can see this and the availability.
Okay, so to get started for the admins and the end users, there's no action required. You'll automatically see this update. And again, you can also visit Google's Help Center if you'd like to learn more about calendar interoperability. And there is a link within our document for that. The rollout pace, rapid release and scheduled release, there is a gradual rollout, so potentially up to 15 days for feature visibility, which is starting on August the 24th. And this update is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers and users with a personal Google account.
Great, that's fantastic, Adam. Thank you very much. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have another Google Chat update. So, introducing Workday app for Google Chat. So this could potentially be quite handy, actually. So Google is adding a new Workday app for Google Chat that allows you to perform quick actions in Workday, such as requesting time off, filing expense reports, and looking up colleagues' information, all without leaving Google Chat.
Wow, this is fantastic. Maybe this is the answer to our holiday request system that we've been trying to sort of make work over the years, find a decent system for us, because we're not big enough to warrant some kind of big complex system that we've sort of tried to implement to make it a bit automated. But equally, we're not small enough that it's just that easy to do it over email. You know, there's a few of us and it can get a little bit, there does need to be some kind of tracking in there. I'm going to look into this. I haven't used Google Workday at all.
So I'm assuming, I don't know much about it, but I'm thinking that Workday is an existing platform that is already there and available for everybody, but they've essentially teamed up with Google, or they have just created a new app which you can now install into Google Chat.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this goes back to the update that we saw previously to Google Chat, where you could add apps into Google Chat. So
yes, it was almost as if Google Chat has its own little app store where there's a handful, I think there were like 52 or so. There were some apps that you could essentially just integrate directly within Google Chat, and now it looks like Workday is going to be one of those. And as you say, this does actually sound quite handy, so we might need to look into this.
Yeah, I think you need to look into that, Adam. That's absolutely right. So, see, I told you before how good Adam is at volunteering himself for jobs. I think this is really interesting, and I think that this would be very useful for companies in our sort of situation where they're of that size, where they just want to keep things flowing. They don't need some great big complicated piece of software or that expense, but equally I do need to track things. Again, for everybody listening, there's a nice moving graphic in the document here showing you a little bit of how this works. Some examples that they've got, well, not some examples, but things in the graphic that they've got here are requests for time off and create an expenses report as well. Something that we do those two things on a regular basis, so this could be potentially very useful for us. What's the getting started, rollout pace and availability here, please, Adam?
Okay, so for the admins to get started, so in the admin console, you can specify whether your users can install the Workday app for Google Chat from the Google Workspace Marketplace. You may also install the Workday app for Google Chat on behalf of users within your domain. So you can literally just, if you want everybody to be using this, you can just push it out for them. I've added links within our document for a bit extra guidance on how to do all of that. For the end users, if allowed by your admin, you'll be able to install Google Chat apps using the new chat button in Google Chat. The apps you install will appear in the chat conversation list. used. Okay, so rollout. This feature is available right now, so it looks like I've got some homework this evening. So it's available right now for everybody, and this is available to all Google Workspace customers as well as users with a personal Google account.
Well, let me know, Adam, if it's any good, and we can maybe mention it on the next podcast if it sounds like a good thing for us to be able to use. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have another Google Meet update. So you can now join client-side encrypted meetings from your mobile device. You can join a client-side encrypted meeting directly from the Google Meet and Calendar apps. Client-side encryption gives users direct control of their encryption keys and the identity service that authenticates those keys. Further, client-side encryption ensures that Google cannot access the audio or video content under any circumstances. The original announcement has more information about client-side encryption within Google Meet, so I've added a link within our document to that. So I'd say that the main takeaway from this, not only that you're able to join client-side encryption meetings, but more specifically from a mobile device. So potentially you were not able to do that before. Maybe it was web only before, whereas now you can join your client-side encrypted meeting from a mobile device.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Adam. That's a very good point that it is only for mobile devices that this update is relating to. We won't talk too much about client-side encryption because it's a bit of a running joke on the podcast. There's been so much on client-side encryption.
We've mentioned it once or twice before.
Once or twice, just once or twice. The client-side encryption is, for anybody not familiar, it means that you can use your own certificates, your own encryption system. Google encrypts stuff anyway, but you can use your own system. Helps with meeting compliance regulations, or if you just want to be in control of your own encryption. So this is, again, a really nice advancement here that you can now join from mobile devices, and I think this is going to be very useful for anybody who is using that client-side encryption. This is going to be really, really useful for those users who are on the go, remote working users who need to join from their mobile devices sometimes, but the corporation or the entity needs to maintain that client-side encryption across all meetings. The other important takeaway here, Adam's given you one about the fact that this is specifically for mobile. I think the other important thing here is that it says Google cannot access your audio and video control under any content under any circumstances. Obviously, because it's encrypted and it's client-side encryption. But just remember, that's a double-sided, double-edged sword. So Google can't access it in any situation where you may need them to access it as well. So I'm thinking recovery or anything along those sorts of lines. Just bear that in mind. I don't think it will be a showstopper for Google Meets. I can't think of a specific example as to why you would need Google to access that. But just bear in mind that, like any time you have client-side encryption, it encrypts it and keeps it in your control, but you are then in total control of it. Nobody can access that whatsoever, so including Google. So they can't recover things for you or anything like that. So that's just an important thing to bear in mind there.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely is a bit of a double-edged sword. So I always think about it. So okay, if it is essential for you to have client-side encryption, not only on Google Meet but across any of Google Workspace, then that's completely understandable and fair enough. But as you say, almost do so at your own risk. I think for my own personal preference, I'm happy in the knowledge that I do not have our client-side encryption available because I'm not doing anything. I don't really have anything to hide. I know that Google encrypts everything itself, and so, for example, the recording of this very meeting we're in right now, for example, I know that it is encrypted by Google already, so it shouldn't accidentally fall into anyone's hands that it shouldn't do. But I'm also happy in the knowledge that if I completely get locked out of my own Google account overnight, or for whatever circumstance I cannot access it myself, Google will be able to step in and help me recover my own data. And in that particular example, I don't actually mind if Google does see the meeting because it's not so explicit or confidential that I want absolutely nobody else in the world to see it. Obviously, I'm not going to go around and just share it with anybody. Well, this is actually the podcast, which we actually do want to share with everybody.
I was going to say we are sharing this with everybody.
But say it was just like a private work meeting between, if we were discussing something completely unrelated, but is just between us. It's not something that we actually want to share with everybody. I know it would still be. I still would not have an issue with Google going in to recover that data if that, in the event that was required.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Adam, and I pretty much have the same sort of thought process in terms of what we do. There's nothing that's super confidential in there other than when we're dealing with our customer data, of course, which needs to be very secure and is, thanks to Google's
sorry.
encryption.
I'm referring to my own data, not other people's, my own data.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But even for us, even for the data that we handle in the UK anyway, there's no specific requirement for us to have some kind of higher level of encryption because it's safeguarding data rather than, say, national security data or something like that. And I think there's an important differentiation there. So I understand that some customers want to protect it with that client-side encryption, or like you say, Adam, there's that requirement there for their regulations or something like that. So this is just another advancement of that, which is very, very nice to see. What's the sort of getting started here? I think there's a few layers of this getting started, right?
Yes, that's right. So to get started for the admins, admins needs to configure how Meet connects to a key service and identity provider before turning on client-side encryption for users. And I've added a link within our document for some guidance on doing that. Additionally, admins need to add a client-side encryption client for mobile devices in their IDP settings. And you can also learn more about configuring client-side encryption within a link that I've added within our document as well. For the end users, you can visit Google's Help Center if you would like to learn more about client-side encryption for Google Meet, and there's a link within our document for that. For organizing calls in a Google Calendar event with Meet video conferencing, navigate to Settings, which is the cog wheel icon, then Security, and select Add Encryption. All participants must be invited to the call either via the calendar event or within the meeting. To get started for those that are participating in calls, client-side encrypted meetings will start once the meeting organizer arrives. There are no other restrictions or changes for the meeting participant.
Great, thank you for all that information, Adam. And what's the rollout and availability here?
So, rollout pace, rapid release and scheduled release. There is a gradual rollout, so again, up to 15 days for feature visibility, which started on August the 24th. And this update is going to be available to Google Workspace Enterprise Plus, Education Standard, and Education Plus customers hosting client-side encrypted calls.
Great. Okay, so again, it's only available at those higher levels, but it's quite nice that they've expanded it a little bit in education there to include Education Standard as well as Plus. That's very good. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
So up next, this is a bit more of a general Google Workspace update, but only for a very select edition. So third-party app access enhancements for Google Workspace for education. We love to see a bit of education. So through the app access control settings, Google is making it easier for Google Workspace for education admins to control how third-party apps access their organization's Google data when users sign in using their Google Workspace for education accounts. Users designated as under 18 using the age-based access setting are required to request access to apps that aren't already configured by admins with a trust limited or blocked access setting. All Google Workspace for Education admins must review and confirm access settings for third-party configured apps that are currently accessible to your users by October the 23rd, 2023. So that's roughly, is that 2 months away? In order for users designated as under 18 to maintain access to those third-party apps. You'll have the option to allow users designated as under 18 to skip requesting access for all unconfigured apps that only ask for basic profile information for authentication purposes. These apps will be accessible for users designated as under 18 without further configuration on your part. Third-party app settings are important for protecting users' data. Google is providing enhanced app access controls to manage access to third-party applications for users designated as under 18. Google Workspace for Education admins are required to confirm third-party app settings for third-party apps currently accessible by users in their institution by October the 23rd, 2023, to avoid disrupting access to third-party applications for users designated as under 18. If you'd like to set different levels of access for specific sets of users, you can now configure third-party app access by organizational unit. So
okay,
that's quite a lot to get through.
yeah, that's all really useful information. I think this is again, a very good security advancement and makes a lot of sense. And I think that in terms of these third-party access, they can sometimes request quite a lot of information. So it's good to know that with those users who are under 18, that it's not those third-party apps aren't accidentally accessing too much effectively, or they're not accessing something that would be a safeguarding issue or be a bit of a problem. Because you can easily understand in this mix of automation how everybody could not realise how much data they're either asking for or giving away in this situation. That third-party app developer may need the address of the person that's in their profile for something that they're doing in terms of location wise, but they don't necessarily want to store the address of people who are under 18 because that could be a safeguarding issue. But they don't know that the person's under 18 because the system isn't necessarily telling them. So it's easy to see, and likewise the user isn't knowing that they're giving their address away. So it is easy to see how that could happen, and this is just another layer to safeguard that. So for any admins listening who, like us, take care of education environments, October 23rd, 2023 is a key date there for you to go in and just check that accessibility. And there's some YouTube links that Adam's put in here, which I'm sure link to some nice videos showing you how to do that. So I'd encourage you to check those out in the document there.
Yes, so I actually thought that this, or although we've not actually mentioned it, I actually thought that this update was already available, because within the admin console, I've seen banners, I've seen prompts for this for a bit of time now from our Google for Education admin accounts. And I must admit, so one of the most popular apps that I keep seeing as requested access for is TikTok. And I wonder just how many schools would like their primary school age children to be logging into TikTok using their school Google account. And I'm willing to bet it's none of them. And so I thought this update was already available because I had seen banners for it for a bit of time already. But it looks like there is now a notification for this. And also, without going off on too much of a tangent, try not to. So you mentioned I've added a couple of YouTube links within our documents that everybody can check out if they would like a bit more of a visual demonstration for doing this as well. However, you may be thinking to yourself, those YouTube links would look awfully nice if they were smart chips. And I would say, yes, you're absolutely right. They would look lovely if they were a smart chip. And I have a little bit of information about that. Turns out not all YouTube video links can be turned into a smart chip within Google Docs. So as I say, super quickly, not going off on a tangent. So first of all, if your YouTube video is unlisted, it cannot be turned into a smart chip. These videos are all unlisted, so that is fundamentally why these ones are just URLs. It is not a smart chip. But also some older or even some brand new videos are not able. Some YouTube videos are not able to be turned into a smart chip. There doesn't seem to be any exact guidance from YouTube saying your video must be this or it cannot be that, but it does look like if it's a very, very old YouTube video, like I think YouTube was created in 2007 or so. So if you have videos from literally way back then I imagine they may not be able to be turned into a smart chip, but most newer videos will be able to, but not instantly. If you create a new YouTube video on your channel today, you may not be able to make it into a smart chip today. Maybe in 2 or 3 days' time after it's completely processed, then you would be able to, but there are some caveats when it comes to turning YouTube videos into a smart chip. Sorry, I didn't want to go off too much on about that.
No, that's good information to have for people. So it's going back to one of our previous updates that we talked about, being able to put in smart chips related to YouTube links. So it's good to know that that is restricted to, and that there are some of those caveats in there. So no, that's good information for people to have, little bonus pieces of information there for people. Thank you, Adam. What's the getting started here for admins like us?
Okay, so to confirm access settings for third-party apps or review third-party app requests by users designated as under 18, go to the admin console, navigate to the app access control card, click review apps for your apps you want to make accessible to users designated as under 18. Click configure apps on the selected app. You can also get started with the guided experience, which I've added a link within our document to as well. You can also visit Google's Help Center if you'd like to learn more and view instructional videos about managing access to unconfigured third-party apps for users designated as under 18 and confirming your third-party app settings by October the 23rd, 2023. Links to all of that within our documents. To get started for the end users that are designated as under 18, request access to a third-party app using a link within their error message under request access. You can also visit Google's Help Center to learn more about access settings for your Google Workspace for Education account. And again, there is a link within our document for that. For the developers out there, there is no action required. However, if you have any questions, you can submit them directly to Google, and we have a link to a form that is literally a hotline straight to Google. So if you do have any queries about this, you can send Google a message, and hopefully they will get back to you. I think what it will be, it was actually requesting if you have any questions that you want to add into their FAQ section regarding this. So then potentially within their help center or possibly somewhere else. I'm assuming it's going to be within their help center. There's probably an FAQ section, and if you follow the link to the form that I've added within our documents, then if approved by Google, then your question could be added there for everyone else to see the answer to as well.
Cool, that's very good to know. Thank you, Adam. What's the rollout pace and availability here, please?
So this feature is available right now and is available to Education Fundamentals, Education Standard, Education Plus, and the Teaching and Learning upgrade. So this is very much, it's for the admins of an education tier.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's exclusively within education there. Thank you, Adam. What's the last update that we've got this week?
Okay, so finally from us this week, we have a Google Keep update. So enhance your Google Keep notes on Android with rich text formatting. Building upon the recent updates to Google Keep on Android devices, such as multi-instance support and the single note widget, Google are adding rich text formatting options to new notes on Keep. This highly requested feature enables you to customize and add emphasis to your text through bolding, underlining, italicizing, and heading styles. You'll be able to access rich text formatting in existing Keep notes on Android devices in the coming weeks.
Cool. I mean, that's a nice update.
It's highly requested, Adam. Highly requested.
I can imagine it's highly requested. I mean, I was just a little bit surprised that it's only just coming in. Aren't you?
Yeah, as you mentioned before, we're not Android users. We don't know these things, but you kind of would have thought that just the option to make something in bold would kind of be there on day one, on day dot of release, to be honest.
God, so 2012, Adam.
I wonder what
bold.
the limitation was.
Yeah, that's a bit... I'm just surprised that those things weren't in Google Keep already. There's some very nice examples that they've given here. I mean, everybody kind of knows, I think, listening to this podcast, what rich text formatting options will give you and things like that. But I remember do you remember when Notes updated in iOS and it went from being, it was like Google went absolutely
from
bananas.
Basic Notes to basically Word.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. They just went from this really basic note-taking app where you could just write notes in, to suddenly you could do notes. They were on iCloud. You could do handwriting. You could put pictures in. You could put audio in.
And still, I think my favourite part of that update, which I still use quite frequently now, is just scanning documents. So within Notes on your phone, you can just scan a document of something. It will automatically just take a photo of your document, and then you can just save that as a PDF. So you don't have to scan it on a printer and send it to your email it to yourself or do whatever with it. Just make it instantly on your phone. I love that feature.
That's
all
really
within
good.
Notes.
I didn't know you could actually do that in Notes. I use a third-party app, so I've been a chump the whole time.
It's
so
very handy.
Wow. So welcome everybody to the iOS Update podcast. No, that's really handy. You've taught me something there, Adam. I'm going to try that out. So yeah, it's kind of like when they updated that, but they sort of absolutely supercharged it. I'm just surprised that Keep didn't have rich text formatting already, but cool that it does now. I mean, that's great.
Baby steps.
Yeah, I mean, when you started reading this, I actually thought it was going to be more like the iOS one, where they were going to go, we're adding in the ability to add voice memos, and we're adding in the ability to take pictures, and we're adding in like a translate thing, and we're adding in, I don't know, some other kooky thing that you can do, location-based reminders and things like that. I thought
it can make your text bold.
yeah, we can make it bolder, we can make it italic. Wow, cool. Okay, great, Google. Well, that's good. Step in the right direction, like Adam says, baby steps. But again, I'm sure for anybody who is an Android user and does use Google Keep, this will be very, very useful. So don't mean to belittle the update, just surprised it's taken this long.
Yeah, I would say it also does look, just looking at the graphic that we have within our document, it does look like there are at least some other features available, such as if you wanted to make a checklist, or if you wanted to insert a picture. There's a picture of a microphone that I'm assuming that you can use for dictation as well. So it looks as if there are some features within Google Keep. Hopefully it's not as basic as maybe it actually sounds, but yeah, there are definitely some options available for those Android users out there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's taken a little while because they wanted to deliberately keep Google Keep as a basic application, like a basic note-taking application. So
and to be fair, using the multi-screen, the multi-instance of Google Keep, I don't think Notes on iOS can do that.
No, definitely not. No, but there are no large screen iOS device. Well, I suppose an iPad counts as a large screen iOS device, doesn't it? But yeah, I don't think you can use.
I wouldn't call this a very, very small device.
Yeah, no, that is pretty big. Yeah, you've got a luxurious iPad there, Adam. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that iOS has really kind of quite cracked that. There is sort of that thing of multi-instance support and picture-in-picture and things like that. I noticed something really cheeky. I don't know if you've noticed this, Adam. They released picture-in-picture on iOS, but it seems to be a paid, or rather a controllable paid level. So, for example, if you try and use picture-in-picture on YouTube, it will say you have to have a YouTube Premium account to do this. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not. No, that is a bit cheeky. But I had noticed, literally going back about 20,000 years when I was back in Mad Day, if you were, before Apple TV kind of came along in leaps and bounds to what it is now. Before, it was very much just the middleman. If you try to stream from YouTube, say from your phone, from your iPad, onto your Apple TV, it would say, no, you can't use this. Or some apps would say you can't use this on multiple devices, or you can't AirPlay this video and things like that, which I always thought was a bit of a spanner in the works.
I remember that. Yeah, they went through that.
But that was a very long time ago.
Yeah, I remember that in the early days of iOS. They were like, oh no, you can't put YouTube on your television, that's too much. And it was really weird. It was sort of.
And now I just use the YouTube app on the TV.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's completely open. God, I've completely forgotten about that. It's quite funny. Yeah, I mean,
We're showing our age.
Yeah, we are definitely showing our age. Me, much more so than you, Adam. So yeah, I don't I don't want to go on too much about iOS. We've sort of gone off on an iOS tangent, but going back to this update. Like I say, for anybody using Android and Google Keep, I'm sure it would be very nice to see. What's the getting started here, rollout pace and availability for any of our poor listeners who have had to listen to us ramble on about iOS for ages?
So this update, so to get started with this, for the admins, there is no admin control to use this feature. everyone can just make it bold at their own leisure. For the end users, if you need some assistance making your text bold, you can visit Google's Help Center to learn more about creating or editing a note, and there is a link within our document to do that. The rollout pace for this...
If you've just arrived from the Victorian era, then please check out the old guide.
Rapid release and scheduled release. There is an extended rollout, so it's potentially longer than 15 days because it is so difficult to make your text bold that Google just needs the extra time.
It's overheating the servers, Adam. It's out of control.
But that extended rollout is started on August the 24th, so hopefully by Christmas you will have some bold text.
Let's hope so.
But, however, the silver lining is that this update will be available to all Google Workspace customers, as well as users with a personal Google account.
Oh, yes, everybody can make their text bold. Finally,
you get bold text. You get bold text. Everybody can have some bold text.
And italicising and underlining. Don't forget, Adam. I mean, they've got all the formatting. So in all seriousness, that's really good advancement to see. Google, if you're listening, please don't send us some cease and desist or something like that. We love your updates. We love your products. So, really good to see. And thank you for going through all of that, as always, Adam. And that's it. That's everything that you need to know about all of the updates happening in the world of Google Workspace this week. Remember that this podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider, and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7, where you can see Adam's new room colour for anybody who's been listening regularly, and see his lovely shade of green that he's painted his room. It looks very professional and office-like, Adam. I really like it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us this week.
And we'll be back again next week with more updates.
Goodbye.
Bye.